Human bodyguard dies saving alien princess. What happens after shocks the galaxy. The streets below were filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes, dressed in colorful robes and uniforms. Some walked calmly, while others hurried through the crowd. Ethan's eyes never left the princess. Princess Leora moved through the parade route with her usual grace. She was tall for her kind, with pale green skin and long silver hair that caught the sunlight. Her eyes were large and violet, giving her an almost ethereal look. She smiled at the crowd, waving gently, but she did not see the danger that lingered in the shadows. Ethan was trained for moments like this. He had spent years protecting humans, but this was different. Scifi was a strange world, and humans were not always welcome. Many aliens thought humans were weak, reckless, or expendable. Ethan had learned not to care what others thought. His duty was simple: protect the princess at all costs. "Sir Ethan," said a young aide, stepping up beside him, "the parade is going well. The crowd seems peaceful." Ethan nodded without turning. "Peaceful doesn't mean safe," he said in a low voice. His hand rested on the hilt of his energy blade hidden beneath his long coat. "Always watch the shadows." The aide swallowed. "Yes, sir, but Zyphorans, they don't like humans with weapons. They might get nervous." Ethan shook his head. "Let them get nervous. Better nervous than dead." He scanned the rooftops, the alleys, and even the sky. In a city like Zyphora, danger could come from anywhere. Princess Leora approached the central stage, where she was to give a short speech. Her guards surrounded her, but Ethan walked closest. He could feel every movement of the people around him, every whisper of the wind. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. Then he saw it, a small drone hovering high above the parade, hidden by the reflection of the sun. It was almost invisible, but Ethan had trained his eyes to notice the faintest disturbances. The drone carried a weapon. He could not be sure what kind yet, but it did not matter. "Princess," he said quietly, moving closer, "we have a problem." Leora glanced at him, confused. "What problem, Ethan? Everything seems fine." Ethan's hand dropped to her arm, guiding her slightly away from the stage. "Stay calm, follow my lead." Before anyone could react, the drone fired. A beam of blue light streaked through the air, aimed directly at Leora. Time seemed to slow. Ethan saw the flash, felt the heat, and acted without thinking. He threw himself in front of the princess. The energy beam struck his chest with a sharp, burning pain. He grunted but held his ground. The princess stumbled behind him, protected by his body. The guards reacted immediately, drawing their own weapons. The parade erupted into chaos. Aliens screamed and ran in all directions, tripping over one another. Ethan could feel the blood running down his chest, hot and sticky, but he did not let go of his position. Not yet. Another shot came. Ethan raised his arms, blocking the beam with a small shield he had hidden under his coat. Sparks flew, and the force threw him back slightly, but the princess was safe. He looked at her face, wide eyes, pale lips, and fear mixed with trust. That trust gave him strength. He managed to push her behind a set of decorative pillars. The guards formed a barrier around them, but Ethan knew it was only temporary. He could not move fast. He could feel his strength leaving him. His vision blurred at the edges, but his mind was clear. "You need to leave," he said, his voice rough but firm. "Go now, princess." Leora shook her head. "I'm not leaving you," she shouted. Ethan smiled faintly, feeling the weight of his own life pressing down on him. "You will live. That is what matters." The drone fired again. Ethan could see the weapon heating up, preparing another shot. Without warning, he leaped toward it. He grabbed the device midair, smashing it against the ground. Sparks flew, and the small weapon broke apart. The immediate threat was gone, but Ethan felt his knees give out. He fell to the ground, coughing, blood seeping through his clothes. The crowd was in shock. Some cheered, some cried, but most froze, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Princess Leora ran to his side, dropping to her knees. "Ethan, no, stay with me." Ethan reached up, touching her hand lightly. I am fine, he said, though each word cost him. Remember, you have to stay alive no matter what. The princess shook her head violently. I can't leave you. Ethan's breath was shallow. You must, I promised, protect you. That's my duty. Don't fail me now. The guards finally managed to secure the area. They pushed back the remaining threats and cleared a path for the princess. Leora refused to leave his side until the medical team arrived. Ethan tried to smile again, seeing her tears and fear. You're brave, Ethan Parker, she whispered. The bravest human I have ever met. He coughed, his body weak. Brave doesn't matter. Alive matters. You must live for Zyphora, for the galaxy. Then his hand fell and his eyes closed. The world seemed to pause. Even the aliens stopped screaming. Even the wind seemed to wait. Ethan Parker, human bodyguard, had given his life to save an alien princess. The medical team worked quickly, but it was too late. The wound was fatal. The princess could only hold him as he breathed his last. Her violet eyes filled with tears, and the crowd around her grew silent. The news spread quickly. A human had died for an alien, showing a courage and selflessness that no one expected. Some aliens whispered among themselves, shocked. Humans were known for fighting wars, for survival, for money, but dying to save someone else. That was new. That was different. Princess Leora stood, lifting Ethan's body gently. We will honor him, she said, her voice steady despite the tears. He did not die in vain. Humans may have been underestimated, but not anymore. The city of Zyphora remained silent as the princess's words spread. The Council of Elders convened immediately, arguing about what this meant for their world and their alliances. Some feared humans, some respected them, but all could not ignore the truth. Ethan Parker had changed something fundamental about how aliens viewed humans. Meanwhile, in the shadows, spies and agents took notes. This event would ripple far beyond Zyphora. Humans had shown the galaxy a new truth. They were brave, loyal, and willing to sacrifice for others. The story of Ethan Parker would not end with his death. It was only the beginning. Princess Leora returned to her chambers that night, exhausted and grieving. She placed Ethan's uniform and sword on a special table, looking at them with a mixture of sorrow and admiration. You were more than a bodyguard, she whispered. You were a hero, and maybe you were the reason the galaxy will see humans differently. Clara Benson, a young human diplomat assigned to Zyphora, watched the scene quietly. She had arrived just hours before the parade, unaware that she would witness the death of a human who would soon become a legend. She took careful notes, realizing that this event would change everything, not just politics, but the very idea of what humans could mean to the galaxy. By the end of the day, the city's mood shifted. Some aliens mourned Ethan personally. Others began discussing what it meant that a human would die for an alien. Across the stars, news channels picked up the story. The headline was simple: Human dies saving alien princess. But the truth beneath it was larger. It hinted at a new power, a new influence, and a new respect for humans, something that would grow and shake the galaxy in ways no one could yet imagine. That night, Princess Leora stayed awake, staring at the stars. She imagined Ethan's courage traveling through the galaxy, reaching worlds and leaders who had never respected humans before. She made a silent promise: his sacrifice would not be forgotten. Humans would not be ignored again. And somewhere in the quiet of the universe, the ripple of one human's courage began to spread. The city of Zyphora was quiet the morning after the parade. The sun rose slowly over the silver towers, but the usual hum of life was subdued. The streets were emptier than usual and the marketplaces were nearly silent. News of Ethan Parker's death had spread quickly. Aliens whispered in every corner. Some were still in shock. Some were angry. But all were thinking the same thing. A human had died to save one of their own. Princess Leora stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking down at the city. She could still see the shadows of yesterday's chaos, the marks of panic and fear. Her violet eyes were soft with sadness, but they also held determination. Ethan Parker had saved her life, and she would honor him. "Your Highness," said Clara Benson, stepping quietly into the balcony room. She was young, barely 24, but she carried herself with a confidence beyond her years. She had come to Zyphora as a diplomat, but she had quickly learned that humans here were often underestimated. "Are you okay?" Leora turned to her, forcing a small smile. "I will be," she said softly. "It is strange. I feel both empty and full at the same time. Ethan saved my life, and yet," her voice cracked. "He is gone." Clara nodded. She understood. Humans often acted in ways that aliens could not comprehend. They risked themselves for others without question. That kind of loyalty was rare in the galaxy. "Your Highness, his actions, they will be remembered," Clara said. "Not just here. Across the stars, humans will be seen differently now." Leora shook her head. "I hope so." "But words are easy. How can we make them see it?" Clara thought for a moment. "Stories travel faster than armies. If we show them what humans are capable of, not just in battle but in courage and loyalty, they cannot ignore us. They will have to respect us." Leora looked down at Ethan's uniform, carefully laid out on a golden table in the palace. The energy blade he had carried was polished and shining, a reminder of his bravery. She touched it lightly, remembering his last words. "You must live for Zyphora, for the galaxy." "Yes," she whispered. "We will make them see. Ethan will not die in vain." The palace council gathered later that morning. The elders and advisors spoke quietly, many still in shock. They debated what to do about humans, their role in the galaxy, and the implications of Ethan's sacrifice. One elder, tall and gray-skinned with long fingers, spoke first. "It is clear. Humans are not what we thought. One of their kind saved our princess without hesitation." "That is remarkable." Another elder shook her head. "Remarkable, yes, but we cannot trust humans. They are unpredictable. They fight wars, they kill, they act for reasons we do not understand. One act does not change that." Leora stood tall. "It is not just one act. It is a lesson. Humans have courage, loyalty, and honor. We cannot dismiss them any longer. They are more than mercenaries. They are allies, and they deserve our respect." The council remained divided, but Leora's words had weight. She was the future of Zyphora. Her opinion mattered more than anyone's. Slowly, the discussion shifted. Perhaps humans were more than the galaxy had believed. Perhaps they were a force not just of strength, but of morality. Meanwhile, across the city, citizens placed flowers and small memorials where Ethan had fallen. Children left hand-drawn pictures, and adults whispered prayers and thanks. Even some of the more skeptical aliens could not ignore the courage it had taken to save a life at the cost of one's own. Clara moved through the city, observing everything. She took careful notes, recording reactions, conversations, and whispers. She knew that the story of Ethan Parker could be used to strengthen human-alien relations. "If they understand him," she said quietly to herself, "they will understand us. And if they understand us, the galaxy may finally stop underestimating humans." In the palace, Leora began planning. She wanted Ethan remembered, but she also wanted to show humans in a new light. She called for a public ceremony, one that would honor his sacrifice in front of the entire city and broadcast across the star systems. The day of the ceremony arrived. The city was filled again, but this time the atmosphere was different. There was respect in the air. Aliens who had mocked humans now stood quietly, heads bowed, acknowledging a courage they had not known existed. Clara watched as Leora stepped onto the stage. She held Ethan's energy blade in one hand and his uniform in the other. "Citizens of Zyphora," she began, her voice strong, "yesterday we witnessed an act of courage that none of us will forget. A human, Ethan Parker, gave his life to save me. His actions were selfless, his loyalty was absolute, and his bravery unmatched." The crowd fell silent. Some could not believe their ears. Humans were known for their wars, their stubbornness, and their recklessness. But dying for an alien princess, that was a story no one could ignore. Leora continued. Ethan Parker's sacrifice is not just his story, it is the story of what humans are capable of. We have underestimated them. We have judged them too quickly, and now we must see them clearly. Humans are courageous, they are loyal, they are honorable, and they deserve our respect. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. Flowers were placed at a newly built memorial in Ethan's honor. Leora stood beside it, holding back tears, while Clara recorded the entire event. Across Zyphora, news channels began broadcasting the ceremony, sharing the story of human bravery with the rest of the galaxy. Some alien leaders were upset. They feared that humans would now have too much influence. They whispered in secret, plotting ways to control or manipulate this new perception. But others were inspired. They saw humans as allies, capable of standing beside them in war and peace. The balance of power was beginning to shift. Inside the palace, Leora spoke to Clara privately. "We must do more than tell stories," she said. "We must show them. Humans have skills, knowledge, and courage. If we train together, fight together, and live together, the galaxy will see humans as more than they ever imagined." Clara nodded. "We can start with young humans. We can bring them here, teach them, and let them work with Zyphorans. They will learn from us, and we will learn from them. Soon, no alien will underestimate a human again." Leora smiled faintly. "It is strange," she said. "One life can change so much. Ethan did not just save me. He started something bigger. He has started a legacy." Over the following weeks, Zyphora began to change. Humans stationed on the planet were welcomed in ways they had never experienced. Training programs were established, blending human tactics with Zyphoran technology. Stories of Ethan Parker were told in schools, on broadcasts, and in every household. He became more than a hero, he became a symbol. Aliens who once thought humans were reckless now watched them carefully. They saw discipline, intelligence, and courage. Even the most stubborn leaders had to admit, humans could no longer be dismissed. Meanwhile, Clara worked tirelessly. She communicated with human fleets across the galaxy, sharing the story of Ethan Parker and Zyphora's response. She encouraged other humans to serve with honor, to act with courage, and to continue building the reputation that Ethan had begun. One day, Leora visited Ethan's memorial alone. The city was quiet and the wind carried the faint scent of flowers. She touched the blade he had carried, feeling the weight of his sacrifice. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered. "You did not just save my life. You changed the way the galaxy sees humans. You changed the future." Clara, watching from a distance, felt hope. Humans had been underestimated for too long, but now, with Ethan's legacy, the galaxy would start to see them differently. Courage, loyalty, and honor could not be ignored, even by aliens who had dismissed humans for centuries. By the end of the month, the story of Ethan Parker had reached countless star systems. Aliens everywhere were talking about the human who gave his life to save another. Some mocked humans, saying it was foolish, but more were inspired. Galaxies that had once treated humans as expendable mercenaries began to consider them allies, leaders, and partners. Leora knew that this was only the beginning. Humans had shown what they could do with one act of courage. Imagine what they could do with training, alliances, and trust. She made a promise that day. Ethan's sacrifice would not be forgotten. His legacy would grow, and humans would never be underestimated again. And so, in the quiet city of Zyphora, the first ripple of a larger wave began. Humans were no longer just survivors, soldiers, or mercenaries. They were heroes. They were symbols. And the galaxy was beginning to notice. The story of Ethan Parker had traveled far beyond Zyphora. Across the galaxy, news channels carried images of the fallen human and the grieving princess. The reports were simple. A human had died to save an alien princess. Yet the simplicity of the message carried a powerful truth. Humans were capable of courage that no alien had expected. On the planet Vierlia, a bustling trade hub with hundreds of species, a group of alien diplomats gathered in a grand hall. Screens showed the memorial ceremony, with Princess Leora holding Ethan's energy blade. The aliens whispered among themselves. This human," said a tall, blue-skinned Virelian. "He risked his life for someone who is not his own. How unusual." Another, with golden eyes, shook her head. "Humans are reckless. They fight for money, for pride. This act is something else entirely. It makes no sense." A smaller alien with fur along his arms stepped forward. "It makes perfect sense if you understand humans. They value loyalty and courage. Some even sacrifice themselves for others. We underestimated them." Across the galaxy, similar discussions were taking place. Some laughed, some were confused, but many were impressed. Humans were always seen as aggressive, self-interested, and chaotic. But now, one human's act of bravery had sent a ripple through every corner of the stars. On Zyphora, Princess Leora worked with Clara Benson to expand the recognition of humans. They started programs to integrate human soldiers, engineers, and diplomats with Zyphoran teams. The first groups of humans arrived from distant star systems, ready to train, learn, and serve. Clara observed the humans and aliens working together. Humans moved quickly, analyzing problems, offering solutions, and taking action without hesitation. Zyphorans, who had always prided themselves on intelligence and planning, were sometimes shocked by the human way of thinking. They acted fast, but their results were often precise and effective. One day, during a training exercise, a group of humans and Zyphoran cadets faced a simulated attack. The humans, led by a young officer named Derek Collins, adapted quickly to the changing situation. They rescued the Zyphorans trapped in the simulation, using unexpected tactics that the aliens had never considered. "This is remarkable," said one Zyphoran instructor, watching the humans work. "They are unpredictable, but in a way that is effective." "Perhaps we misjudged them," Leora nodded. "Ethan Parker showed us one truth. Humans fight not just with strength but with heart, and that heart can change the galaxy." Meanwhile, news of Ethan's bravery spread beyond training grounds. Alien media channels debated the significance of his sacrifice. Some criticized humans for their recklessness. Others argued that his loyalty and courage proved that humans could be trusted as allies. Even politicians took notice. Across star systems, leaders who had ignored or mocked humans began to rethink their strategies. If one human could inspire this much respect and fear, perhaps humans were a force to be considered seriously in future negotiations and conflicts. In the shadows, however, some factions were uneasy. A group of powerful alien warlords whispered among themselves. "If humans are gaining respect, if their reputation grows, we could lose influence," said one with red scales and piercing eyes. "We cannot allow them to rise. We must find a way to control them." Another shook his head. "We cannot control them easily. Humans are not predictable. Their courage, their loyalty, they follow principles we do not understand. Trying to manipulate them could backfire." Even with fear and suspicion around them, humans continued to prove themselves. Leora and Clara organized missions to show the galaxy the capabilities of humans. These missions were not only about training and defense, they were also about building trust. Humans helped planets recover from natural disasters, solved engineering problems that had stumped alien scientists, and worked tirelessly in diplomacy to prevent conflicts. One such mission took humans and Zyphorans to the mining planet of Kurlan. There, a tunnel collapse trapped hundreds of alien miners underground. Humans and Zyphoran engineers worked side by side, coordinating efforts, lifting debris, and carefully planning the rescue. Derek Collins led a group through the most dangerous sections, risking his own life to reach trapped miners. When the rescue succeeded, the miners and local leaders praised the humans. "They are not just fighters," said one miner. "They are protectors. They are heroes." Back on Zyphora, the palace received messages of gratitude and admiration from dozens of worlds. Princess Leora saw the truth of what she had suspected. Ethan Parker's sacrifice had started a chain reaction. Humans were no longer ignored. They were becoming a symbol of courage, loyalty, and hope. The influence reached even military circles. Alien fleets began requesting joint exercises with humans. They wanted to see firsthand the techniques and bravery that humans displayed. Some were skeptical, fearing humans might be reckless. But after observing training exercises, many were forced to admit that humans were not only brave but also skilled and adaptable. Clara documented every event, every mission, and every interaction. She realized that Ethan's story had created something bigger than herself, Leora or Zyphora. It was a movement, a quiet revolution in how humans were perceived. In the middle of the excitement, Leora received a message from an alien council in the Outer Rim, a remote but powerful sector. They had heard of Ethan Parker and the training programs. The message was simple: if humans can act like this, we need them on our side. "We want a meeting." Leora shared the news with Clara. "This is it," she said, excitement and seriousness mixed in her voice. "We are reaching parts of the galaxy we never thought possible. Humans are no longer just survivors. They are a force to be respected." But not all reactions were positive. Some alien factions saw the growing admiration for humans as a threat. Rumors spread that humans might become too influential, upsetting existing power balances. Some began plotting to discredit humans, while others considered sabotage and espionage. Yet the humans continued their work. They did not fight for politics or influence. They acted from principle. Every mission, every act of bravery, every display of loyalty strengthened the reputation that Ethan Parker had begun. On Zyphora, Leora visited Ethan's memorial daily. The blade he had carried was polished and gleamed in the sunlight. The uniform he had worn was displayed carefully, a reminder to all visitors of the sacrifice he had made. "I hope you see this," she whispered to the memorial. "Your life, your courage, is changing the galaxy. Humans will not be ignored again." Clara stood beside her. "They already see it, Princess. Humans are being watched, respected, and even feared in some places. One life started this, and now the ripple is spreading. It is just the beginning." The ripple reached further than they could imagine. Alien fleets in distant sectors began requesting joint operations. Trade alliances considered human participation more seriously. Even planets that had once been hostile to humans now opened channels of communication, curious to learn more about this species that seemed to combine intelligence, courage, and loyalty in equal measure. In training centers across Zyphora, humans taught aliens techniques of resilience, quick decision-making, and selfless action. They shared stories of past human wars, survival in harsh worlds, and moments of courage. Aliens listened with growing respect. For centuries, humans had been underestimated. Now they were proving themselves in ways that no alien could ignore. The galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to pay attention. Humans were no longer just another species. They were becoming a symbol of something larger: bravery, loyalty, and the power to change the course of events simply by acting with principle. And through it all, the story of Ethan Parker remained at the center. He had started it all, not with words but with action. His life, his sacrifice, and his courage had sparked a chain reaction that no one could stop. Humans were being noticed, and the galaxy was beginning to understand. They were not to be ignored. Princess Leora looked at Clara one evening, as the sun set over Zyphora. "Do you think they will ever truly understand humans?" she asked. Clara smiled softly. "They are beginning to understand, and the more humans show courage, loyalty, and honor, the more they will see. One life has started this change. Imagine what a whole species can do. Leora nodded. She touched the blade at Ethan's memorial. Then we will make sure they do. Humans will be seen for what they truly are. And Ethan, he will always be the reason. The galaxy had begun to change, quietly, almost imperceptibly. But the shockwave of one human's courage was spreading farther and faster than anyone had expected. And no one in the galaxy would ever underestimate humans again. The galaxy had begun to notice humans. Every system had heard of Ethan Parker, the human who gave his life to save an alien princess. But admiration alone was not enough. Humans needed allies, and the galaxy was full of factions that either feared or underestimated them. It was time to show that human courage was not limited to one act of heroism. It could reshape the balance of power. On Zyphora, Princess Leora and Clara Benson worked late into the night in the palace. Scrolls, holomaps, and communications from distant star systems covered the table. "We need to strengthen human-alien bonds," Leora said, her fingers tracing the route of a distant trade corridor on the map. "Ethan started something. We cannot let it end here." "Humans must be seen as partners, not just heroes," Clara nodded. "I agree, but some factions will resist. Some will try to manipulate humans, others will try to discredit them. We need to act carefully, but we also need to act quickly." "Then we will start with those who already respect humans," Leora said. "We will form alliances quietly, in the shadows if we must, and show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of." Their first mission was simple but important. A Zyphoran science station on the edge of the Orithian Nebula had reported mechanical failures threatening their research. Humans and Zyphorans were sent together to repair it. Among the humans was Derek Collins, a young engineer with a sharp mind and steady hands. His team worked alongside Zyphoran technicians, fixing complex machines and stabilizing the station. While the work was technical, the humans' adaptability impressed everyone. Derek anticipated problems before they happened and offered solutions that Zyphorans had not considered. By the time the mission was complete, the station was fully operational. The Zyphorans were amazed. "They think so differently," said a senior Zyphoran engineer. "They are quick, careful, and brave all at once. I did not expect this from humans." "It is not just skill," Derek said, shrugging. "We act fast because we know what's at stake. We protect what matters no matter what." Word of the successful mission traveled quickly. Across the galaxy, humans were being seen as reliable partners, not just mercenaries. Other star systems began inviting human teams to participate in research, defense, and diplomacy. Yet, as admiration grew, so did fear. Some alien factions whispered in secret. Humans were unpredictable, loyal to their own kind, but also brave enough to defy anyone threatening their allies. If humans continued to rise, the balance of power could shift. One night, in a dark chamber on the planet Vorin, a council of alien warlords met. Hissing voices and low growls filled the room. "We cannot let humans gain influence," said one with black scales and glowing eyes. "Their courage, their loyalty, it makes our fleets look weak. If this continues, they could take control of key systems." Another nodded. "We could try to manipulate them, offer alliances, favors, and promises. They are still young as a galactic power. Perhaps we can bend them to our will." A third shook his head. "We cannot bend them. Humans do not follow threats or rewards. They follow principle. That is their strength and our danger." Meanwhile, on Zyphora, humans continued to prove themselves. Leora and Clara organized joint exercises between human and Zyphoran fleets. The exercises were demanding. Humans showed strategy, resilience, and willingness to risk their lives to protect others. Zyphoran officers, who had always prided themselves on intelligence and control, were often forced to admit that humans were exceptional. During one fleet exercise, a simulation of an enemy ambush tested the humans and Zyphorans. Lieutenant Emma Carter, a young human officer, led a squad through dangerous asteroid fields and energy traps. She made split-second decisions, saving Xiforan ships from destruction. "This is extraordinary," said Admiral Talon, a senior Xiforan officer. "They are not just brave, they are clever, adaptable, and fearless." Clara watched quietly. She knew that every successful mission, every act of courage, strengthened the reputation of humans. They were no longer just soldiers, they were symbols, and symbols inspired respect and fear alike. But humans did not fight for fame. They fought because it was the right thing to do. Their actions were deliberate, selfless, and honest. Aliens watching could not help but notice. As humans and Xiforans trained together, Leora also reached out to distant systems. Small alliances were formed, often quietly in the shadows. Humans were invited to assist with defense, research, and diplomacy. Some alien leaders still whispered fearfully of human unpredictability, but even they could not deny the results humans delivered. One particularly dangerous mission took humans to the planet Grelton, where a rogue fleet threatened civilian colonies. The humans worked with local defenders, creating strategies that combined Xiforan technology with human ingenuity. They anticipated enemy movements, protected civilians, and neutralized threats with minimal losses. When the mission ended, leaders of the colony sent formal thanks to Xiphora. They included a note about the humans. "Their courage and intelligence saved lives we thought were lost. We will never doubt humans again." Back on Xiphora, Leora watched the reports with satisfaction. "Ethan's legacy is growing," she said. "One life started this. Now humans are more than stories, they are change makers," Clara smiled. "And it will continue. The galaxy is noticing, Princess, but we must be careful. Some factions will try to challenge us." Leora nodded. "We will be ready. Humans have courage, humans have heart, and they will not be ignored." Yet, the threat from alien factions remained. Spies were discovered on Xiphora, attempting to gather information about human training and fleet movements. Some alien warlords sent fleets to monitor human activity, hoping to find weaknesses. Despite these dangers, humans adapted quickly. Their ability to learn, adjust, and act decisively impressed everyone, even their enemies. They were no longer predictable. They were not just fighters or soldiers. They were leaders, innovators, and symbols of hope. During a council meeting, Leora spoke to her advisors, her voice calm but firm. "Humans are more than their strength. They are ideas in motion. Courage, loyalty, honor, these are things the galaxy cannot ignore. We will continue to show their worth, and those who oppose them will have to think twice." Clara added, "We can use this influence to prevent conflicts. Humans are not just warriors, they are problem solvers. They can bring planets together, repair damage, and save lives. That power is more valuable than fleets or weapons." The council agreed, though some remained wary. Fear of human unpredictability was real. But the evidence was undeniable. Humans were changing perceptions, alliances, and strategies across the galaxy. One evening, Leora walked alone to Ethan's memorial. The silver blade gleamed in the fading sunlight, and the uniform was displayed proudly. She ran her fingers along the hilt. "You started this, Ethan," she whispered. "Your courage is building something greater than any of us imagined. Humans are no longer just survivors. They are allies, leaders, and symbols. And you are their inspiration." Clara joined her, quiet but smiling. "They are watching, Princess. Humans are making their mark, and they will continue to do so." From the shadows, observers took note. Alien factions that had once dismissed humans now recognized a growing power. Some feared them. Some admired them. But all knew that humans were no longer ordinary. The shockwave of one human's courage had grown into a current that flowed through the galaxy. Humans were no longer ignored. They were no longer underestimated. They were becoming a force, one that could not be contained, manipulated, or silenced. And through it all, Leora and Clara guided them, quietly, strategically, ensuring that humans' courage was seen, respected, and remembered. The galaxy had begun to change, slowly but surely. Humans were no longer just stories of survival. They were examples, symbols of principle, and a rising influence that could reshape alliances, friendships, and even wars. In the quiet of the night, Leora whispered once more to Ethan's memorial, "You gave your life for me, for Zyphora, and for the galaxy. That life was not in vain. Humans will rise, and the galaxy will remember them. Always." The galaxy was no longer the same. One human's courage had started a wave that could not be ignored. Ethan Parker's sacrifice had changed perceptions, inspired alliances, and proven that humans were not just survivors, they were heroes. On Zyphora, Princess Leora stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city. The sun reflected off the silver towers, and she could see humans and Zyphorans working side by side in training grounds, research labs, and fleets. She smiled faintly. The galaxy was beginning to notice, and humans were taking their place among the stars. Clara Benson stood beside her, reviewing reports from distant systems. "Princess, we are receiving invitations from 5 more sectors," she said. "They want humans to assist with defense, technology, and diplomacy. They have heard of our missions, our training exercises, and they want us as partners." Leora nodded. "It is more than I could have hoped. One life, Ethan's life, started this change. And now humans are becoming a force the galaxy cannot ignore." Meanwhile, in a distant star system, the rogue fleet that had long threatened neighboring colonies gathered. Their leaders had heard of humans' growing influence. They had underestimated humans for centuries, assuming them to be reckless and weak. But news of Ethan Parker, the training programs on Zyphora, and humans' quick thinking in past missions had reached them. "This is troubling," said Admiral Varkin, a reptilian warlord. "Humans are not what we expected. They are fast, loyal, and brave. They adapt to every situation. If we attack now, we risk losing more than we gain." Another warlord, Claude and Gray, growled. "Perhaps we can find weakness, some flaw we can exploit." But they could not. Humans were not predictable, and their courage gave them an edge that few alien species could match. On Zyphora, humans prepared for their next mission, protecting colonies threatened by a pirate fleet near the Orion Expanse. Derek Collins, Lieutenant Emma Carter, and several other human officers were selected to lead the mission, alongside Zyphoran commanders. The fleet departed quietly. Humans and Zyphorans coordinated their plans, combining alien technology with human ingenuity. Every move was calculated, yet flexible. Humans anticipated obstacles, adapted quickly, and placed the safety of civilians first. The pirates struck suddenly, expecting an easy victory, but they had not accounted for human courage. Humans acted decisively, shielding Zyphoran ships, rescuing trapped colonies, and striking at the pirates with precision. In the middle of battle, a human ship was hit. Lieutenant Emma Carter's team moved immediately, repairing damage under fire, keeping civilians safe, and turning the tide. Zyphorans who watched were amazed. "They are incredible," said Admiral Talon. "They do not just fight, they protect, they adapt, they lead." After the battle, the pirates were defeated. The colonies were saved, and the galaxy took notice. News of the mission spread faster than any human or alien expected. Reports of bravery, skill, and selfless action reached every corner of the stars. Leaders who had dismissed humans now requested meetings. Traders who had avoided human fleets now sought contracts. Even hostile factions began to reconsider their approach. Humans were no longer a species to be ignored, they were a force to be respected. Back on Zyphora, Princess Leora stood before a council of galactic leaders, presenting the results of humans' missions. "One life started this change," she said, her voice steady. "Ethan Parker gave his life for me, but his courage has shown us something greater. Humans fight not for power, not for greed, but for principle. They protect, they lead, and they inspire. We must honor them and we must work with them. Clara added, humans are not just soldiers. They are innovators, problem solvers, and loyal allies. Across missions, exercises, and challenges, they have shown skills and courage beyond expectation. The galaxy cannot ignore them. Some leaders were still skeptical, fearing humans' unpredictability. But many others were impressed, offering alliances, technology sharing, and mutual defense pacts. Humans were becoming central players in galactic politics. While diplomacy moved forward, Leora also focused on training the next generation. Young humans and Zyphorans were paired together in programs designed to strengthen bonds, teach courage, and develop leadership. The future of the galaxy would include humans at its core. During one exercise, Derek Collins led a team through a simulated crisis on a civilian colony. The humans worked tirelessly, taking risks to save simulations of innocent lives. Zyphorans watched, learning humility and respect. They saw firsthand that humans did not calculate bravery, they lived it. Even alien children learned about Ethan Parker and the humans who followed his example. In schools across Zyphora, stories of courage, sacrifice, and loyalty were taught. Children learned that humans could inspire, lead, and change the course of events through principle and bravery. But not all reactions were positive. Some factions in the galaxy continued to plot against humans. They feared their influence, their courage, and the alliances they formed. Spies were sent to monitor human activity. Plans were hatched to discredit them, but humans proved difficult to manipulate. Their loyalty, courage, and adaptability made them unpredictable and powerful. One spy, caught trying to sabotage a human Zyphoran mission, reported back, "Humans are unlike any species I have ever seen. They do not act out of fear or greed. They act from principle, and that makes them dangerous in ways we cannot control." Meanwhile, Leora and Clara coordinated with humans to ensure that their influence grew wisely. "We will show the galaxy that courage and loyalty are strengths," Leora said. "We will prove that humans are not just warriors, they are leaders and partners." Ethan's sacrifice was the first step. Now we continue. The galaxy was learning to respect humans. Aliens who had mocked them now watched closely. Factions that had ignored them now sought their cooperation. And humans, led by courage, principle, and skill, were proving that their influence could shape alliances, prevent conflicts, and save countless lives. One evening, after a successful mission protecting the colonies near the Orion Expanse, Leora walked alone to Ethan's memorial. The sun set behind the silver towers, painting the sky in gold and violet. She ran her fingers along the blade he had carried. "You started this," she whispered. "Your courage is building something greater than I imagined. Humans are no longer just survivors. They are allies, leaders, and symbols of hope, and it all began with you." Clara joined her quietly. "They will continue to inspire, Princess. Humans are no longer underestimated. The galaxy sees them now. They will not be ignored again." Leora nodded. "I wish you could see this, Ethan. You gave your life for me, for Zyphora, and for the galaxy. But your life has done more than we ever imagined. Humans are rising, and you are the reason." Across the stars, the ripple of Ethan Parker's courage grew. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were heroes, partners, and symbols. Their actions reshaped alliances, inspired hope, and even shifted the strategies of those who had once feared them. Galactic leaders now counted humans as equals, if not superiors in some ways. They were unpredictable, loyal, brave, and principled, a combination that few species could match. Humans could change the course of events not with politics alone, but with action and courage. In the quiet of the night, on Zyphora and across the galaxy, stories of humans spread. Young aliens told their children about the bravery they had witnessed. Leaders reconsidered their alliances. And humans, inspired by the memory of one fallen bodyguard, continued to prove themselves worthy of the galaxy's respect. The galaxy had been shocked once by a single human's courage. Now it was learning to respect a whole species for the same reason. Humans were no longer just participants, they were change-makers. And in every mission, every act of bravery, and every decision to protect others, Ethan Parker's legacy lived on. His life had ended, but the courage he displayed became eternal. The galaxy would never forget him, and it would never underestimate humans again. Princess Leora stood before his memorial one last time that evening. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered. "Because of you, humans will rise. Because of you, the galaxy will see them. And because of you, hope will always have a face." From the quiet streets of Zyphora to the distant corners of the galaxy, humans were being watched, admired, and respected. One bodyguard's sacrifice had started a revolution, not of weapons or fleets, but of courage, loyalty, and principle. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Humans had arrived.